Okay, are we out there in the world? First, I'm playing The Last of Us prologue over yesterday, or I played it yesterday, but um, my computer decided it was just going to randomly go to Wi-Fi, so it it's unwatchable. Don't watch it. But first, can we talk about my Corona quaff? Like, I don't. I mean, you guys don't know me, but this is not acceptable, and it's giving me anxiety. So, all right, let's do this thing. All right, Last of Us prologue. I'm redoing it because it's probably one of the more inventive and important um, segments of the game. Um, Naughty Dog likes to put in little surprises like this, where playing as young Drake in Uncharted, for example, and um, this was certainly a surprise to many people. But it's also they do just such a wonderful job of laying the groundwork for the rest of the game with this segment. So I wanted to do it over since I plan on doing a whole like edited long retrospective of this playthrough. Um, and yeah, the prologue's too important to pass up. So please enjoy the only load screen in uh, The Last of Us that isn't hidden behind a door that takes two people to open, or a ladder that must be put up. Hey, Cozy, what's going on? Here we go. Appropriate, The Last of Us starts with an isolated sound because so much of the sound design in this game is quiet. We're so used to video games that are loud and bombastic, and so much of the power of the sound design in this game is silence, the loneliness, the quiet. Um, Sound is a weapon that can be used by the monsters in this game, the clickers. Um,
He's still doing up. It's late.
Crud, what time is it?
It's way past your
and the
bedtime.
creators clearly put a lot of thought into
Honey, please not right now. I do
how they did sound in this game.
What's this?
Your birthday?
Take a good look at Joel, because
Kept complaining about your broken watch.
when we get our first look at him
So,
after
figured, you know, you like
the
it?
time jump, it's really remarkable, especially in the remastered version. Just just how much 20 years
I think it's
put on the man.
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage
Yeah,
then.
little entrepreneur in the house. Of course, the watch is important, as it becomes the sort of last vestige of Joel's attachment to his daughter. Um, it's interesting that the title of this game is The Last of Us, and your first assumption is that, The Last of Us refers to the last survivors in this world, when really it could also mean the last parts of you from the old world that you hold on to in this more threatening, uncertain future. As you watch this prologue, like, truly take in the sound. I'll shut up a little bit. Each time there is sound,
Mommy? Hello?
it's super important to what is going on, and everything else is this sort of eerie silence.
What was that all about?
The people who designed the environments in this game just did an incredible job. You could spend a considerable amount of time just looking around Sarah's room
Dang it.
and learning all this information about her just by the way the room is designed. So here's the birthday card that should have gone with the watch. Dear Dad, let's see. You're never around. You hate the music I'm into. You practically despise the movies I like, and yet somehow you will manage to be the best dad every year. How do you do that? Happy birthday, Pops, from Sarah. There's clearly a strong relationship between the two. We don't learn really anything about her mother, but it's clear that Joel trusts Sarah almost as a grown-up.
You in here? Where the heck are you?
Respect for the set dressing, having the exercise equipment being a dirty clothes hamper.
What was that? Oh God.
No use of music here. No employing the sort of crutch of orchestration to build up the tension. They just let it be in the silence and in the few chosen sound effects that they use. Empty houses are creepy,
There's his phone.
especially if there's an expectation that they shouldn't be empty.
8 missed calls. Where the hell are you?
Playing as Ellie in this moment is really kind of ingenious, because even though you're in the body of, or playing as Ellie, playing as Sarah, because even as you're in the body of Sarah, what it's really doing is setting you up for what Joel
Where is he?
is going to carry with him. She's just walking around this house in her PJs, completely vulnerable and afraid. And as a father, I can tell you that one of the
Sarah,
most upsetting parts about being a father is imagining your child
does anyone come in here?
experiencing true terror.
Don't go near the door.
Enough bad things have happened in schools over the past
You're kind of freaking
20
me out.
years
What's going on?
that any parent has imagined their child being stuck in that type of situation, and I don't think there's anything more frightening than that, except maybe your neighbor headbutting the glass door.
Jimmy. Jimmy, I am warning you. Don't.
You shot him.
Sarah,
I saw him this morning.
there was something
The way they chose to direct Sarah's performance is really, really fascinating. She could have leaned into sort of histrionics and screaming and terror, and instead you can see this
going on out there. I got some notion.
this little girl who is doing everything in her power to maintain her poise. And it makes the end of this sequence, when we actually see her give in to the terror, all the more powerful.
How you holding up, honey?
Okay. Can we hear what's on the radio?
Yeah, sure thing.
Thanks.
Cell phone, no radio. Yeah, we're doing great.
And again, this is another
They said
part of this sequence that
put up roadblocks on the highway.
is really kind of ingenious, by giving you control over where you look and what you see. You actually fill in the world around you. There's a sense that where you're not looking, there's a sense that where you're not looking, there are still things happening. And one of the magical things about The Last of Us is the way that they make a linear game feel bigger than a lot of its open world peers, just by giving us these very specific details and letting us fill in the rest. And it's never heavy-handed. It's really, really elegant. Just masterful storytelling.
Of course not.
How do you know?
They said it's just people in the city. We're good.
Didn't Jimmy work in the city?
And probably the reason why this is my favorite game of all time is because every aspect of the game, whether it be, you know, obviously the story and the characters get a lot of credit.
You got a kid, Joe. So do we.
But we have room.
Keep driving, Tommy.
This moment right here is a pretty clear indication of where Joel is going to end up at the end of the game. His priorities are certainly not in saving the world, but making sure that the people that are important to him and the people who care about him are safe. And it's just another one of the many aspects of this game that coalesce and come together to affect how you feel as a player. From the setting to the sound, the score, even the collectibles all help fill in this world and give you a feeling of the loneliness that's embodied by Joel and the trauma.
Come on, people, move.
What are they running from?
Give us any. I'm trying.
Oh no.
We can't stop here, Tommy. I can't fucking drive through them, Joe. Back up there. They're behind me too. There. Hold on. Go.
So coming up here, one of the first things you see in this shot is going to be the watch.
Daddy?
And then when Joel is bashing out the window, you see the intact watch again. Naughty Dog does this a lot, where they're giving you information or they're making you feel something without you realizing you're getting information, or that you're not seeing the source of why you're feeling this way or another. I love this look between Joel and Tommy that just sort of reflects how foobar
My leg hurts.
everything is.
Bad.
We're gonna need to run.
Now I've played this run,
Hold on tight.
this Heroes run, I don't know, a dozen times probably over the years, and I'm still seeing things in it that I've never seen before. And it's an example of what I said earlier, where, you know, Naughty Dog, by filling every corner of the frame and everything around it, even when you're not looking a specific way, there's a sense that the world is full and that things are going on, and that what's important is not necessarily narrowed down to what you see in the frame.
Go. He's dead. God damn it. We're almost there. We're almost there, baby. They're getting through the fence.
And again, the Sarah's reaction continues to build
Come on.
as things move along, but she's still fairly controlled compared to how you'd expect maybe a 12-year-old girl to act.
Hurry.
Daddy, we can't leave him.
be fine. We're almost there.
So we've already had Joel watch a neighbor that he had, we would assume, a good relationship with turn against him. And now here we're going to watch as the people who should be protecting him are going to turn against him and his family. And that leaves Joel set up to have essentially nobody in the world to trust.
We need help. Stop! Please. It's my daughter. I think her leg is broken. Stop right there! We're not sick.
Got a couple of civilians in the outer perimeter. Please advise.
Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy?
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay?
Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Somebody, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need... Please don't. Oh no. Sarah.
And here's that
Move your hands, baby.
here's that terror that
No.
I was talking about.
Listen to me. I know this hurts. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby. I know it hurts. Come on, baby. Please. I know, baby. I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me. Come on. No. 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 Please.
Troy Baker, everybody. If you haven't seen it, there is a documentary called Grounded that details the making of this game. And watching Troy Baker really, really struggle to finally get to that performance is really, really great. I don't know if I mentioned this on this sort of attempt, but I have a 9-year-old daughter who was 2.5 at the time this game came out. So that scene has only gotten more powerful as time has gone on. Look at how old Joel looks here. Ooh, buddy.
I'm coming.
The years have not been kind.
How was your morning?
No.
How long does it take for us to realize Tess is a badass?
Hey, we had a drop.
Maybe half a second?
We had a drop to make.
Well, you wanted to be left alone, remember?
So I'll take one guess. The whole deal went south and the client made off with our pills. Is that about right?
Deal went off without a hitch. Enough ration cards left.
So when this game came out, I had just discovered
I was on my way back here and I got jumped by these
a comedian named Jen Kirkman,
Yeah, they got a
who happens to be from the Boston area, who looks remarkably like Tess.
Still with us?
and it may have played a part in why I just adore the character.
Is that Robert fucking something?
If I was more prepared, I could show you a picture of Jen Kirkman, but I can't even get my hair in order, so.
Like him, you do.
Old warehouse in Area 5. Can't say for how long, though.
Well, I'm ready now. Yeah.
All I can do now.
So this little segment here, this little walk, is a good demonstration of how Naughty Dog uses subtle tools to tell their story, instead of banging you over the head with it. You hear things in, side conversation, like this woman talking about getting recruited to go outside the wall. You got the curfew sign. We'll see some Firefly tags, some Firefly graffiti on the walls. We'll run across the military, police, whatever they are at this point. The ration line is coming up. There's just a whole lot of information packed into this, and what's really cool about what Naughty Dog did here is they don't expect you, they don't need you to see any of it. It's kind of optional. It's how much do you want to explore, how much do you want to take in this world. Everything is gravy. There's nothing keeping me from walking past this little vignette that is going to show the government, or what's left of the government, scanning these people for the infection. If I hadn't stopped as a player and observed this, it just would have been some gunshots in the background. And that's, again, just filling out the world, even when things aren't on screen.
Seems like more people are getting infected.
That just means more people are sneaking in.
Okay, so it was at this point last night that that I stopped to reset my internet. So the second part of night one is already out there. If this caught your interest, then by all means check out part 2, and I will be back in 90 minutes for Billstown and a little extra. So be back in a little bit.